please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire and Masters Ball. Good to have you with us on this Friday. Lots to talk about, Todd. Draft season is in full swing. TGFBI is creeping along, and it's a fun time to be a fantasy baseball player and just a baseball fan in general. How are you on this Friday?
I am doing well. This time next week, I'm looking at 50 and 60 degrees, so I'll be doing a little bit better. But I wanted to open my door. It's beautiful outside. I wanted to let some wind in, let some fresh air in. It's, can't do it quite yet, but we're getting there pretty soon. Some ball on TV, like you said, drafts galore. I defended my Nerf championship last night, New England Rotisserie Fantasy or something like that. It's the league that was followed up the Barf League, the Bay Area Rotisserie Fantasy that the late Lar Michaels and Justin Mason started. So Chris Mayer, Baseball Pods guy, started a New England version and won it last year. And there's several of them now. There's a Turf and a Perf and a whatever. And
Glurf.
We're going to get in.
Glarf.
Yeah,
Glarf,
we're going to get into
Great Lakes or something.
Yeah, and we're going to have it be put into an overall. So you guys have seen enough tweetings of leagues. It's an OBP league with quality starts. So you know what? Let's not clutter up your timelines even more. So I didn't bother tweeting out my draft last night. But if anybody's interested, hit me up on Twitter. Hey, Twitter's back. Hey, what do you know? Twitter was down for me. I felt naked without being able to look at Twitter. Twitter is now back. Of course, I've got the flow from Progressive Girl staring at me in an ad, but that's all right. I also have Clay Link staring at me too. So
I'm trying to look into the camera now that we're on YouTube.
Oh,
to practice that, but it's tough. I'm usually either looking at you over here or looking at myself to be sure I'm not. I don't have like a booger hanging out of my face. Yeah, we got so much to talk about, and we'll get to a lot of it. Before we do, though, I have to ask you: did you see the Shaq match from this week? The Shaquille O'Neal wrestling match. I
have not watched a lot of wrestling lately. I am aware of that, and I know the Big Show's going over there, but honestly, have not watched a lot lately. I've not watched a lot of TV in general lately, just doing so much work. Turn a movie on at night when I'm trying to go to bed, and I tweeted this out yesterday. I watched the last half hour of the remake of Footloose. Does anybody know where I can go to get that 30 minutes back? Oh, good Lord. Why did
the Men in Black thing to erase that from your memory?
Oh, I mean, Footloose is actually, went to spring break. I think it was 1984. And that was kind of the signature song. We drove from Cleveland to Florida. And that was the signature song of our trip. So it kind of has some memories. So just to see a cowboy I don't want. Maybe people liked it, but a country and western version of Footloose, it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed, but I
didn't either.
Didn't have high hopes for Shaq's in-ring debut in pro wrestling, but people have been hating on Shaq, and I don't know his current thoughts on the current NBA and whatnot. But I got respect for that guy because he went through a couple tables. It was actually a pretty fun match, and I give Shaq credit because he didn't half-ass it. He got in there and took a huge bump and put on a good show.
Is it a one and done, or is he now going to be wrestling for a bit?
I could see him doing some more matches because he looked like a natural, quite frankly. At one point, he was sweating weird or something, but it looked like he was like crying or tears were coming down his face. Don't know why.
Well, that'll happen when you put through a table.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
kind of left it on a cliffhanger, like he escaped the ambulance, Shaq, and he was like just on the loose.
Oh, they've never done that before.
But then they never paid it off by the end of the show.
Well, that's what the Big Show's for, right? Because that was the rumored match a few years ago in the WWE. So
I just wanted to see if you caught that because I saw it, and then I saw a bunch of clips of Shaq going through the tables, and I thought it was pretty funny. But yesterday, Todd, I had the Beat Clay Link League. I want to thank the folks over at the NFBC, Greg Ambrosius, and everybody over there for setting me up with another Beat Clay Link League. I almost felt guilty getting Mookie Betts at 8, Todd.
You should.
I just don't get it. I can see the case for any of the players except for Trey Turner, who went ahead of Mookie Betts. I just can't see the case for that, even if you're chasing speed for the overall. But hey, that wasn't even his max pick. I've seen he's fallen as far as 9, so I thought maybe this was his max pick for Mookie, but it was not. And then followed up with Lucas Giolito, Zach Gallen, and Jack Flaherty. I got to say, doing a 12-teamer after so many 15-teamers is just, it's like a high. It's a rush. You know how Animal of Legion of Doom, speaking of wrestling, said, what a rush. And that's how I felt like. And I called it like trips aces on Twitter. And I've never done this before, but I thought that allowed me to load up on hitters in that range. And there's some good ones, so I'm glad I did that. Pete Alonso, Gleyber Torres, Yon Moncada, Jose Altuve, Dansby Swanson. I know I did James Anderson proud with that Altuve-Swanson combo. But what do you think of those 3 aces? Do you consider all 3 of those guys true fantasy baseball aces? Giolito, Gallen, and Flaherty?
Flaherty, I do. I want to see take the gloves off Flaherty, and I think they will. I think St. Louis will. Personally, I wouldn't have gone there for 3, but that's fine. Different strokes. That's why we play the game in a 12-team league. It does set you up, and I'll be doing my own 12-teamer next week. And what I find in the 12-teamers, and I don't know if the same sort of thing, we all have our own late pitching that we like, right? And we, to try to target, but it's late pitching in a 15-team, and these pitchers shouldn't be drafted in a 12-team league. But I find myself gravitating towards them because I like them, but you shouldn't be drafting Josh Lindblom in a 12, or maybe in the reserve. So that's my most. I want to draft all these pitchers because I did so much research and I think they're going to have a good season, but they're not good enough for a 12-team league. That's what drives me nuts. So I'll be doing mine next week. But yeah, Flaherty's the one question mark. Is that do they take the kid gloves off? And even if they do, did he pitch enough last year so that he could go? Well, you get him in the 4th round, so we've been seeing him in the 2nd round of 15-teamers, so you got him at a discount. These guys were nice to you, weren't they? Man,
they were generous. It seemed like I'm not assuming anything. We'll see, but I do like how it ended up for me. I just felt like with Flaherty still there, it probably made sense to get that 3rd starter and then just really hammer hitting. And I think this isn't something I've usually done, but I love the hitters that I got in this range.
Yeah, were other teams not drafting pitching, or did they just fade Flaherty?
It looks like they mostly faded Flaherty, although, let's see here. 2nd round, Bauer, Giolito, who I took, Buehler, Nola, Scherzer. Then 3rd round, Luis Castillo, Brandon Woodruff, Clayton Kershaw. Then I took Zach Gallen. Then Tyler Glasnow went ahead of Jack Flaherty.
So the dynamics of a 12 and a 15 are different just because, the fewer teams and, doubling up, who wants to double up, who doesn't want to double up. So obviously people are going to move down. But even so, that's at least he had to be in the 40s, right, Flaherty?
I believe that was, yes.
Because 36 so it had to be probably in the 40s. If you had the 8th pick, it was probably right around 41. And man, that's 3rd round in a 15-teamer. I know the dynamics are different, but that's like a half a round. Yeah, that's a nice discount.
There's so many good players in baseball right now, and yeah, doing a 12-teamer, you just come out of it feeling like your team is absolutely stacked. Of course, we'll probably all lose a few players on the teams we've drafted so far before the end of spring training. But yeah, when you spend so much time doing the 15s, then you dive into a 12. It's a hell of a rush. One guy I usually never end up with, but I got Joey Gallo just because I felt like I had a decent batting average base and I needed some RBI and power. So Gallo was a fit on this team. I thought Aaron Savali was making some headlines yesterday with a revamped delivery. We had a note on that on the site.
Yep.
I think it was Nick Pollock of Pitcher List noting the shorter arm action. Pretty exciting player. And I know you said on Twitter a while back you would not be surprised if Aaron Savali out-earned Zach Plesac, his teammate. So I know you already had pretty high expectations. Does this do anything for you? Did it pass the eye test or move the needle at all, what you saw yesterday?
One of the reasons why I was high on him is I trust Cleveland to work with him and bring the best out of him. So I didn't know what they would do. Whether it was Savali all by himself or coaching or I don't know exactly, but I expected Cleveland to find a way to make him better. And if it's the motion as opposed to switching up a pitch, et cetera, that's fine. Now, when a pitcher changes motion, you get a little nervous about injury. I don't know enough about the mechanics. That's not my thing to know if this is maybe it will prevent injury as opposed to be more likely to have an injury. If you're shortening the arm action and all you're really doing is the finish is the same, but you're taking less time to get there, it's probably not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, it was nice to see because he dominated in his short stint on the mound, but it's just something to know. That is a good call about, maybe keeping the injury in the back of your head, maybe not getting carried away in drafts and reaching too far. Because remember when Verlander did that? Like after the Cy Young year, he changed his delivery, and it's like, why are you changing things up? Then he got hurt right away.
Yeah, he changed it up to prevent from getting hurt, and of course he got hurt.
Yeah, that's not what you want. Of course, in the days since we've talked, Todd, Framber Valdez, we're still waiting official word, but John Heyman said that he could be out for the entire 2021 season. Hate to see that. The team, I think, disputed that, or maybe some contradicting reports. But it doesn't look good for Framber Valdez. And I don't think he was drafted in this 12er last night. Pretty sure he was not.
Unless it was an auto draft, he should have been.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I trust John Heyman with this kind of thing, and the team's probably just waiting to maybe have a second, third opinion.
That's what I heard, was second opinion.
Yeah, so that's understandable. We wish him the best. But with that, I did push up Cristian Javier up my rankings. Ended up getting him in the 18th round last night in this 12-team Beat Clay Link League. Kind of a two-pitch guy, and he spent some time in the bullpen late in the season. In the postseason, he was a reliever. But I think with Framber Valdez hurt, this pretty much solidifies him in, and the minor league numbers with Cristian Javier are off the charts.
Yep, he and Jose Urquidy both should be pushed up a little bit, and the whole Forrest Whitley bandwagon is starting, and I already penciled in Jake Odorizzi into my Houston playing time grid, saying tongue-in-cheek. But yeah,
by the way, Forrest Whitley did go in this 12-teamer last night, which I was surprised.
Yeah, I would not be surprised, but I'm not expecting much. But he's an easy drop if things don't work out in spring training. But no, Javier, I mean, you're in a 12-teamer. It's churn. So he's definitely worth taking a shot on.
Yeah, Double-A in 2019, 74 innings, 2.07 ERA, 2.91 FIP. For Cristian Javier. He does have some command and control issues, certainly, but could be a guy, especially if MLB does deaden the ball. He's kind of got a fly ball lean. I just think the skills are there, and there's plausible upside with a guy like that who, 23 years old. Another guy, similar boat, Tejay Antone. I've been leading the hype train on Twitter, Todd, and look, what he showed was awesome. It's kind of funny how things work with pitching ninja Rob Friedman. He'll tweet something out, and sometimes it's misleading in a sense because the outing wasn't really good, like with Hunter Green. He had that heater working, but nothing else was working. He hung a breaking pitch to Jose Iglesias, and he crushed it. So I saw some people who didn't really see the outing like being like, oh, man, I'm all in on Hunter Green. So I felt like, maybe if you see those gifs, you could be led astray every now and then. But then I saw Tejay Antone. It's like, yeah, that was fully what I saw too. Like but it wasn't just one pitch that was working for him. He had the fastball up at 87, 88, or not 87. That would be really slow. 97, 98, 99. And then he had the breaking pitch working too. We don't even know his role yet. The Reds could do something stupid. I just think there are a couple.
Not the Reds.
Yeah, they're not quite the Rockies, but they do some questionable things. Look, I think there are a couple paths for Antone. Maybe he could close because the stuff is that good. Also, I think if he's a starter, he could be really valuable. I mean, I think that the Reds have to see what they got, maybe capture lightning in a bottle, because he could really be a franchise changer for them. Their window is maybe open for a second, then maybe seem to be shutting. But if Tejay Antone can blossom, he could really help this organization. So I'm kind of all in on Antone. Do you want to maybe sober me up
No.
smack me around on.
You know what I like, and I don't know that they'll do it, but he may be a great primary pitcher. Coming in,
I wouldn't be
with that stuff. If you got I don't know their staff well enough. You got maybe a crafty lefty to open up
Wade
the
Miley.
first inning. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. Piggyback him with Wade Miley, right?
That could very well be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, you get this crafty lefty. We'll see how the other team manages the platoons, and this guy coming in just busting it at 97, 98. That's a Tampa Bay approach, but I could see, and you like him you like him getting a win with 4 innings or 3 2/3 or 4 1/3, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be interesting. It's definitely an interesting arm. Now the problem with that kind of gambit in a 12-team league is there is churn. So how long can you sit on him? Right. I mean, early in the year, you don't probably have any injuries, but at some point, if you're still waiting and you've got injuries, it's this isn't a reason not to do it. It's just a tough decision.
Yeah. And if he's not making starts, he's kind of in a 12-teamer, maybe kind of tough to hang on to, especially if he's pitching sporadically, not in a primary role.
Right.
Yeah. I just think, the eye test, I mean, he just screams like viable major league starter. He wasn't just dominating any team. He was dominating the Dodgers in the heart of that Dodgers order. I mean, he made Gavin Lux one of the top prospects in baseball look silly. Chris Taylor struck him out. Justin Turner, he got out. So I just think everything looks really good for Tejay Antone. I had to get some Jarred Kelenic. The chat was like, you had to get your guy. I got him in the 15th round. I was talking with James, and he was a couple picks away, or maybe he did set the min pick on Andrew Vaughn in his Beat James Anderson league earlier this week. I think it was like 180. Maybe it was 2 picks away from the min, but we both agreed that there gets to be a point between 150 overall and 180 overall where the margins between these players get really thin. Player pool starts to kind of wash together, and I think it's best to chase upside. That's how I like to do it, but at the same time, in a 12-teamer, if he's not up right away, if I have to wait 3 weeks, and maybe beyond, if since there's the AAA season isn't starting right away, that could hurt in a 12 where so many others are using their bench spots to rotate in at bats.
Yep, but that going in, and you'll make the decision. Now he's in the pool, so if you have to drop him, you can go back and get him a week before he's called up. So maybe you make a preemptive strike. Leagues where he's not, well, he's going to be drafted in the reserve of almost every league, if not the starter. But the point being, in NFBC, this is like the one rule I don't like, actually, is if he's not drafted, any minor leaguer, he's not available in that league until he's called up. But if he's drafted in your league and someone drops him, he is available. So, when there's an overall competition, to me, it should be kind of similar. If he's either available or he's not. He can be drafted, but if he's dropped, he shouldn't be available until he's called up again. My opinion, once I start running a national contest, I'll change the rules. But until then, we're just going to have to leave it this way. But, yeah, a lot of talk. There's the whole situation with the GM there blabbing his mouth. Does that bring him up earlier? The one thing we got to remember with Kelenic is just because he breaks camp, maybe they break camp and he starts, it doesn't mean he can't be sent back down once there is a AAA season. It almost gives Seattle an out. He may hit himself or not hit himself back to the minor leagues, right? All right, well, here's your shot. And if he's hitting 175 when the AAA season starts, now you can't have a grievance. You're hitting 175, kid. You're down. Mm-hmm. So interesting to see how that all plays out.
That's so true. Like, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to succeed right away, kind of like self-imposed pressure, because he's been so confident that he's ready to go. And yeah, if he hits any sort of skid, that gives the team an out for sure. I will not be dropping him. I will hold on to him throughout the season if I have to. But no, I thought it was funny the other day. Did you see that? How I think it was Scott Service who was doing a radio or doing the in-game broadcast interview, and he said, "Well, the players will tell you when they're ready." And the second he said that, Kelenic hit a 2-run opposite field bomb. It's just the timing was so beautiful.
Yeah,
I loved it. I will say, though, that drafting Kelenic did kind of affect my decisions a little bit later because I wanted to maximize my bench value. So I got a couple guys with multi-positional eligibility, Jamer Candelario, Kike Hernandez, just to kind of build in some extra flexibility. Kike is pretty iffy in a league like this, but I thought 2B OF with semi-regular playing time, especially if they're getting a couple lefties up in the half week. And
Alex Cora has challenged Kike Hernandez to be a leadoff hitter. So that's not to say.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's what Cora does. He kind of gives players personal challenges, and he's not doing. If he hits well, he'll hit leadoff. It's not like he's just trying to fake him out. So and that's interesting. Now you usually don't platoon your leadoff hitter, although I don't know. Maybe Alex Verdugo. You can platoon. You can platoon a leadoff hitter in that sort of an instance. But that's interesting. At least it shows the Red Sox and Cora want Hernandez to take and run with the job because they did. They picked up a lot of other pieces. They just picked up Danny Santana. Not that it affects second base necessarily, but Michael Chavez can play a little second. There's some domino effects. They can cover second base, and now with another part like Santana, if he makes a team, it just more flexibility, more ways to cover it. But Hernandez getting first dibs.
Yeah, I would say we just talked about Cristian Javier. We got a note just earlier today. Apparently out due to health and safety protocols. Still on track to break camp with a spot in the Astros rotation. So that's good. I just wanted to note that. Finally, on this Beat Clay Link League, before we move on, Todd, the couple of spec guys. I mean, I don't even see Jake McGee as a spec closer.
No.
I mean, I think he is the closer. So I got him in the reserve rounds. And Adam Ottavino, who I know you've been beating the drum for. I think I was listening with you and Jeff. Great stuff on XM this week. And you're like, I kind of believe in Ottavino. And I guess that's kind of an indictment on Barnes. But sounds like you're hands off Barnes entirely.
Yeah, especially because I'm not going to use him as my high strikeout reliever because he's going to wreck my whip. And so, who do you've got? You've got Yates, you've got McGee, you've got Avino, and you've got Bradley. So, we're talking about people to drop. You have built in, you don't have to drop Kelenic right away. You're just going to see how these, if it's Barnes, you drop Ottavino, not a big deal. And then it's just kind of deciding between McGee and Bradley who you start every week, whether that's schedule, et cetera, because they're both kind of, I guess San Francisco's a better team. So you happen to get them later, but that's only just because of where you thought you needed to take them in order to get them both. Is aware. But I like you got Kikuchi, who we know is sort of a Baseball HQ favorite, and there's Baseball HQ people in every draft, so you just don't know when you have to get them. And we've talked Lindblom a little bit, and I know that you're a Cincinnati fan, but in Milwaukee, so I'm sure you hear some but some reports on Lindblom, maybe more than others. At this point, it doesn't matter where you live, you get the reports. But you're not even going to go out in the streets, so forget about that. You can't even. People aren't talking about it in the streets because you're not going out in the streets.
And people just aren't talking about Josh Lindblom in the streets of Madison.
Well, but the gym or the coffee shop previously may have been. You never know. Sure. Even Carson Kelly is an upside pick at that point. At least a potential breakout. Carlos, you got a couple of the, I took some chances. I need some stability. David Peralta. If Kelenic doesn't break camp, you got Peralta, right? And he's going to play. Yeah,
I can kind of platoon him and Kike a little bit if necessary.
If Tavares doesn't play a lot, which he should, but if Delino DeShields takes over, you're covering. Carlos Santana, man, is just so underappreciated, right?
He is. I mean, he had a really good year in 2019.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see. So you've got Alonso, who isn't going anywhere. Cabron Hayes, who isn't going anywhere. Who else is your corner? Is he your corner?
My other corner is I got Moncada at third, and then, Cabron Hayes.
But there's still spot at utility, so you easily can find a spot for Santana.
And you mentioned Leody Taveras. That was a speed makeup pick, and who knows? The downside for him is the minors, but I think the speed and just the situation Texas is in, where they really should be evaluating talent for the future. I think he'll play a fair amount. Real quick, Todd, Auto New Fantasy Baseball is the next level fantasy baseball challenge you've been looking for. Experience a year-round dynasty competition with deep rosters. Accumulate prospects to lead your team in the future, or move for a superstar at the trade deadline. Keep your baseball mind engaged in the offseason with trades and arbitration. Learn more about why everyone who plays Auto New becomes addicted at autonewbaseball.com. That's OTTONEU baseball.com. Auto New, better fantasy baseball. I have fun competing in the league on Auto New that we play in together, Todd. We'll see if any of us can knock off RotoWire president Pete Shanky this year.
Well, he has the nerve to actually make moves every day.
Yeah.
I'm making it my pledge. I'll say it on air. I am going to play hard. I'm going to make my moves every day this year. And Peter beats me. It's because he has a better team, not because I didn't make my moves.
Yeah, I'm trying to pare down my leagues this year just so that I don't have any like that that league's a little harder because it is daily moves for your active lineup, and you miss a few days, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. But there are limits, so it does kind of build in a few. As you've made that point, it kind of gives. But
that means you have to be more efficient, right? You have to be more efficient. So
true. I enjoy it though, and I look forward to playing again this year on Auto New.
Yep.
Todd, after riding high on this 12-teamer though, maybe I got a little greedy in TGFBI because I already had Kelenic there. Well, in the 16th, Andrew Vaughn was still sitting there, and I couldn't pass him up. So this is a 15-teamer with 7 bench spots. Maybe I'm going to be hurting myself stashing 2 guys, but I also think there's a better than 50% chance that I won't have to wait on one of these players.
Yeah, well, and that's I mean, everybody. That's your style. I'm the David Peralta type guy, so I probably aren't going down that road. Although in my league right now, I'm not taking a risk on players. I am playing a big game of ADP chicken with my league, and we're getting closer to my pick, so I'm breathing a little easier. But I've got a team that I love, but it can go wrong fast if I don't fill in the next 3 or 4 picks the way I need to fill in. So I'm kind of sweating out getting a couple. And who would have ever thought that I would have needed? Let's see. Will people when they hear this? The heck with it. It's my job. Who would ever thought that I'd be sweating out C.J. Cron and Colton Wong? But I need those 2 guys.
I know. Yeah. In a slow draft, it's like painful because you want to be sure you get that piece of the puzzle fit in, and you're just so anxious watching the green dots flicker in the draft room. And sorry. Even
in a live draft where it takes 90 seconds until your next pick, this is days or hours. It's and I don't like to be in this position. I call it. I prefer to choose, not chase. I am chasing, and it's my own doing because I took a closer in the 8th, Trevor Rosenthal, and a catcher in the 9th, Wilson Contreras, and a catcher in the 11th, and Cristian Vasquez. There just weren't anything else at that point where to address. And I wasn't going to take players that I wanted later at that point. That was air quote too early. So I took a look back to see what the guy that won it in 2019 to see what he did, and he took a couple catches early.
Did he?
So I figured if he could do it and be successful, so could I. So kind of plagiarize the 2019 champ a little bit.
You can't plagiarize yourself, Todd.
That's right. I'm sorry. There you go.
I like it. I'm looking at your team here.
A kid with a dream.
I love it. Hey, if one of us could be a 2-timer, 2-time champ, I don't know if that feat could be replicated. So let's one of us try to do it. Looking at your team here, yeah. So Contreras in the 9th and Cristian Vasquez. I got to that point in my 12 where I took Contreras just because, same with you, I just kind of had to bite the bullet and nobody else really stood out to me, so I grabbed him. And I know you like Cristian Vasquez. Earlier in the draft, you took Brandon Woodruff, so your start was phenomenal. I mean, Soto, Scherzer, Woodruff, Springer. Was this, I assume it was post-news on Woodruff's like little back issue. I'm not the biggest Woodruff guy. I look at the innings, and he's never even cleared 160, I don't believe, as a pro. So I think any kind of bet here is a bet on him kind of doing something he's never done as a pro. But the skills I don't really argue. You can't argue with. I do worry about the workload. But taking Woodruff here is a kind of a thought, well, the bell curve is going to be flattened, and Woodruff relative to everybody else, that innings total is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm looking between 160 and 180. So now it's a matter of looking to see what, Kenta Maeda, Zach Gallen, Blake Snell.
I like Gallen a little more, actually. But
maybe. I mean, I could be wrong there, but I'm still a little bit skeptical. I maybe it's fewer innings, but I like the ratios better. And if Woodruff's out, I backfill him at that point. And then, not even taking a pitcher there at all and waiting to the next round, I would have been looking at Corbin Burns or Sonny Gray. I like them, but I don't like them as my second starter. Yeah. I want them as my third starter. Kind of hurt. I don't know if it's so much hurt, but I passed on Barrios, and I already had two pitchers, and I didn't want to go a third there because I knew I liked some pitchers a little bit later. So this was just I'm actually I played a lot of chicken throughout this entire draft, which is I don't normally do that. Normally go get my guy, but I just sensed that the players would fall to me. I'm a little nervous. I mean, when Scherzer, Woodruff, and Greinke are your top three, I mean, that could be nails, or I could nail my coffin too. I just made that up on the spot. How about that?
I love that.
Could be a nail in my coffin. Perfect. But so we'll just have to see. But I tweeted about this. I loved the start. I mean, but then when I got to like the sixth round, I didn't like anybody. So I took Swanson because I know I needed a shortstop, and then we talk about how great it is. That's because so many great shortstops were taken earlier. But another shortstop after Swanson wasn't taken to Semien in the ninth. I mean, that's like 40 picks later. So that was more of a and I didn't. If I didn't take Swanson, then I knew I'd be taking Miguel Rojas in the 22nd. Because I just knew I wouldn't be taking a shortstop before that. So I don't love the pick, but it was somewhat of a necessity. The 6 to 10 spot it's just uncomfortable. It's nothing I really wanted. But now there's 4 players I want for every spot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just now it's now I wish I could trade my 7th and my 23rd for like 2 13s or something like that.
I hear you. I like what you did. I mean, Swanson in the 6th. I agree generally though that range is like a little muddled, and I don't feel great about any pick I'm taking. So maybe that is the range to get a Trevor Rosenthal, get a Wilson Contreras, and just by the end of the draft, your team's going to look a lot better if you just suck it up and take one of those. I think Scott Pianowski said, eat your vegetables, take a closer. Kind of thing, like your parents tell you.
It's on the radio yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of hate doing it, but it's like you just have to build a healthy body and a healthy fantasy team. Not that I know anything about building a healthy body in particular, but Todd, let me ask you though about Jeff McNeil, because you said you passed on Jose Barrios. And the guy you took to in passing on Barrios was Jeff McNeil. You also took him over guys like Trent Grisham, Nick Castellanos, Aaron Judge. You were on Alvarez, Michael Conforto.
They're all green, and I already had 2 greens.
Yeah, so was it the second base and multi-positional eligibility, the driving force behind this decision?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm not a slave to ADP, but at this point, I'm looking to see what I can get later, what I like, what I need. I know also I like some outfielders, and I knew I was going to be short on speed, and there's a couple outfielders I like. So I did not want to lock myself into another outfielder. Now I could address speed. Now Grisham I'm worried about with the lack of the DH. If he's hitting 8th, not platooning, but flipping up and down in the batting order based upon who's starting. If he's hitting 8th, he may not run as much. So I'm a little concerned about that. I love Castellanos. I got no problem. Passed on him. Judge, little injury, like Conforto as well. But it was. And I also don't like the pick. And I was called out by our friend Masato, Mike the Mouth, rightfully so. I didn't, air quote, don't need batting average at that point. But, and I'm thinking it's my third hitter. I don't know what I need yet.
Mm-hmm.
If I can, I maybe need to knock away at the batting average. So I do. If this is a magazine like you do, and you say, the pick you hate the least, or the pick you like the most, like the least, or whatever, Jeff McNeil would be that pick for me.
Yeah.
Not that he's a bad player. But there was nothing else that I wanted at that point. But I now have some batting average, so I can nick away at it. I prefer not to have to do that, but we'll see what ends up happening. But if you look though, there's not a whole lot of speed on that team so far. That's my problem. I have to make up the speed, and that's what I'm saying about Colton Wong, who I think will run. And it's not so much Seager. If I don't get CJ Cron, I'm not going to cry about it. I just think he's going to do really well. But I do need, I have Trey Mancini already, who I can move to the outfield, so I'm kind of covered. It's just I think he's going to do well. And I went and looked at the other drafts, and when's Cron going? When is Wong going? So we'll see. As long as my league moves faster than our podcast gets posted, I'm all good.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope you don't get sniped, because it does come with the territory, but at the same time,
we've got plans B's and C's. We're all good.
Yeah, I mean, getting sniped in this industry is just another day on the job. But one guy who went at the turn between your McNeil and Dansby Swanson picks, a guy who's already catching some helium early on this spring, Austin Meadows, a guy who maybe could have provided you with some speed in theory, but again, you did already have two outfielders. But Meadows already has 2 homers this spring through 5 at-bats. That's pretty good.
Yeah, tough to run when you're trotting around the bases,
yeah.
Huh?
I mean, he's jogging. He's not running so far. So
that's good to see, though. No,
I love seeing that. Is he a guy you're maybe thinking about boosting up his projection?
You know what? I think I was probably pretty high on him. If nothing else, I think the skills-wise, I didn't read too much into last year, but going into 2020, he and I guess Willie Adames were the two guys that if they're healthy, they're going to play, because Adames, who else is going to play shortstop, and Meadows is because he was really good. So what I may do is give him more playing time, which organically builds up the counting stats. That might be the way to go. I mean, I'm not going to, his skills are back. I didn't nick him skills all that much.
Yeah, I think you just you crumple it up and throw it away, what he did last year, because it was such a small sample. He had COVID. He's a young player. I mean, performance just fluctuates in those small samples. And this was a guy who's people were looking at as maybe being a Cristian Javier type. Just this time last year, people taking him in wasn't he like a 3rd, 4th rounder, Meadows?
Yeah, and we're doing we have a certain draft on Sunday night, AL, right?
Yeah, man, I'm nervous about that one.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be going toe to toe on Meadows, but he's definitely when his name is nominated, I'm not going to be looking elsewhere. I will be paying attention to we're talking about AL Labor, folks.
Yeah.
And you can follow it on Sirius XM. I believe there'll be a Zoom chat. There'll be several different ways, and Clay and I will be toe to toe, head to head, Shaq to Big Show with Austin Meadows and some other AL players come Sunday night.
I can't wait for that. I've never won that league. I did have a 2nd place finish, and I want to get over the hump, but it's like the toughest league. The player pool stretched so thin, the most cutthroat fantasy managers on the planet, and not an easy championship to take down. The guy who's outperformed Meadows somehow early on is Joey Gallo, and I mentioned I took him. He's homered in all 3 spring games he's played in. So, again, I just have not really been interested in taking Gallo because of the damage he does. And I almost feel like, an idiot for taking him last night, because it does seem a little reactionary. But again, I felt like I had a safe enough batting average base to take it. But, man, taking Joey Gallo, it never feels good. But at that point, you've loaded up with outfielders early. I didn't have a second outfielder at that time. I only had Betts, and I was through
only folks.
Had Betts.
He only had Betts.
Had Betts.
Let's all whip out our violins. At the 8th pick, nonetheless.
Yeah, I did get super lucky, but I just I wanted to mention Gallo's hot start for a second.
The thing with Gallo, and I think I can explain this, is if you're drafting Gallo, you think he's going to have a good year. if you think he's going to have a good year, his batting average is going to be good, right? I mean, home runs are hits too. So if you think he's going to pound extra homers, then the batting average will follow. It's not just a matter of striking out and BABIP, et cetera. If he comes back and bounces back and hits the extra 5 or 6 homers, that's 10 or 12 points in the batting average. So it's like a double bet. By drafting him, you're not drafting the 230 projection. You think he's going to do better. So you're kind of all in at that point. And yeah, why not? You're not sure the standings generator is going to add the 230 in, but in your head he's going to hit 250, 260. So we'll see.
Yeah, it was the 12th round, and I only had one outfielder. So I took Gallo over some names like Alex Verdugo, Tommy Edman, first base, or outfield eligible, rather. Just didn't fit my team needs at the time. Will Myers could have been in that mix. I'm just not the biggest Will Myers believer. I don't know what it is. And the lack of the universal DH hurts him. I guess that dream is officially dead now, huh, Todd?
No, well, no.
Not necessarily?
The window is, if you're talking about the Evan Drellich piece in The Athletic, it's still cracked open. I mean,
is it?
Yeah, well, it said, last year they made a last-second change. There's nothing that says they can't this year. Mm-hmm. But what he did say is there's no talks going on right now.
Oh, so they could just start talking again.
Maybe there are, and that we don't know about them for a change. But I am increasingly pessimistic. It's just increasingly blowing my mind that they're not going to do it. But I'm still I'm now drafting. I'll put it this way: I am now drafting with no DH in mind, and that's that. I mean,
Same.
That's my approach, and it's not making a big difference, but it's made a little bit of a difference.
Same. I was holding out hope, and I guess it does sound like maybe there is still a possibility. But
there's always a possibility.
Dead issue for now, though, right?
Right.
But they could always ramp up. They could always start talking any minute.
Right. Exactly.
One thing I wanted to throw out there: Adalberto Mondesi ready to play in games. Going to bat second and play shortstop today against the Dodgers. He's been dealing with a sore foot, so those Mondesi truthers have to be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, and I expect him in that AL labor salary cap draft that we're doing on Sunday. I expect him to go for full price. I don't expect any sort of discount on Mondesi, especially with Brett Sayer in the room.
Yes, in an AL only, NL only league, speed is air quote worth more because there are fewer stolen bases in the pool. So the same, whatever number he gets, you divide it by a smaller number because AL only versus mixed, stolen bases are worth more, and even relative to power. So for sure, we'll see. And I think talk about Scott Pianowski. I forget the exact phrase. He wrote up his league or his TGFBI league, and he says, people are talking about Mondesi about, the risk and everything else. He says, I'm not drafting scared. I've drafted Adalberto Mondesi with an exclamation point. I'm not scared. And I think that's a good point.
I do like him in the overall contest. I mean, if you go with an ace early or like a Soto type, I think I was able to pair those two up in one league, and that's just the upside is massive. And we already saw him swing some leagues, Mondesi, last year. But as we wrap things up, Todd, I wanted to ask you about a few of your more recent picks in TGFBI. You are through, looks like 13. You're in the 14th round now. Will Smith, and not the Will Smith on the Dodgers. So you took Will Smith of the Braves in the 12th round. So anything that you've seen recently that's made you maybe jump Smith? Because I usually don't see him quite this high.
I jumped him because I am planning on jumping Chris Martin a little bit later. And I just felt that I personally, on my sheets, have Smith ranked pretty high still. If anybody's following my sheets and drafting, defensively, then maybe I was going to lose Smith. So if I end up losing Chris Martin a little bit later, this time next week, I'll be lamenting talking about it and not get and doing what I did. But that's kind of the plan. And if we're looking. The only other closer that has been taken since I took Smith was Matt Barnes, and Ottavino is still in the field. So that's what that and I'm comfortable using Will Smith if he's not closing.
Mhm.
So maybe I try. And at this point, and this is actually what my Z Files is going to be about. I mean, we talk ADP, jumping ADP, etc. I'm doing correlation studies between different portions of the ADP in different positions to see how well end of season numbers correlated to their ADP.
Mhm.
And I actually don't know the answer. So I am curious. So I'm running the risk of designing an experiment where the answer is boring. But I guess we'll just have to find out. Although
boring isn't always bad.
That's exactly what Jason Gray used to tell, because I used to do these, and he says, no result is a result. And I'm a scientist, I know that, but you just can't publish a cool paper on it.
I like that, though. I mean, sometimes when there's nothing there, and you just,
and that's
the worst thing you can do is force it.
That is information, right?
Exactly.
I mean, but it's just not as sexy information as being able to come up with something else. And I think people have done what I've been doing before. Ariel Cohen's done a little bit, Jeff Zimmerman, but I hope to have a slightly different approach, and we'll see what goes on.
Then your most recent pick, Trey Mancini. I'm pulling for the guy. Wish him the best. Was there anybody else on your mind there, or I haven't really been drafting Mancini mostly because I'm just scared for him and wishing the best, but in the midst of a pandemic, coming off what he's coming off. I'm just a little worried.
It's a bit of playing, because I could have taken Crone there. I could have taken, so it was a bit of ADP chicken in that it's also Crone coverage. If I don't get CJ Crone, all right, I've got Trey Mancini, or I can use him in the outfield. If I do get CJ Crone or still corner infield, there was just no one else I wanted at that point. I wasn't going to take my third or my fourth starter just yet, because there's still some starters I like. And Marco Gonzalez, I'm sure that there's whenever Marco Gonzalez is drafted in every one of these TGFBI leagues, there's 14 other people breathing a sigh of relief, because we're all looking at him. Right?
I know. I heard you say something similar earlier this week, and I'm with you. Although I'm usually that sucker who's taking him, but at the same time, he's usually like in my queue for 2 rounds before I actually do take him.
Yeah, no, absolutely, exactly. So I like Mancini to bounce back. He's looked fine early on in camp, first base outfield eligibility. So I still kind of need it. And there still wasn't anybody, Andres Gimenez was recently drafted, for speed. Who could I have taken for speed at that point? So I am really pushing speed, but we've talked. I mean, again, it's no secret, and this is what we do. Edward Olivares, we talked Ledios Terraris in your draft already. There are Jared Olivo. There are outfielders. It's not drafting Malak Smith in the 5th round or Billy Hamilton in the 2nd. It's getting that one trick pony, but when you get him in the 18th, it's not a big deal.
Totally. I look forward to following along with your draft. My draft is so you guys are in the 14th. Let's see where I'm at here.
We have crawled.
We are in the 17th. So
we were out of the gate. I think we had 6 rounds done in the first day.
Yeah, that's right. Because I was like, I hadn't made a pick, and you'd made 3.
Yeah,
and I was jealous.
So we were, and I'm not complaining. I'm just this is just a fact. We have slowed down. And that's fine. I mean, I joked the fact that I'm pulling my hair out, what's left of it, trying to wait. Make 3 more picks before to see what I get my next one. But I kind of wanted it to be close, if not done, by the time we kick off Razzball next week.
Nice.
That's the modified cut line. Best ball. It's a cut line scoring, but a 12-team put on by our friends at Razzball, where again we're all thrown into an overall. Just because there's so much going on, I kind of wanted to be done. It might be, because it's not a DC; it's a 30-round Fab League, so we still could get done next week. But we'll be talking with each other enough over the next 48 hours that we'll be able to talk about each other's picks all weekend.
Yeah, I love this, and it's a good just jumping off point to talk about players. So thanks to Justin Mason again for putting on the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. It's always a good time, and I kind of kid on Twitter about the slow picks too, and I I joked about unfollowing people, but that was just a joke. I'm not trying to pressure anybody. They're well within their right to take up as much clock as they want. I'm anxious. I want to make.
Oh yeah, I joked as well. talking about ADP, it's like, why'd you make that pick? Well, I don't care about ADP. And then that same person, like, yeah, you picked that guy way too early. Yeah. So,
Classics.
that's what we're getting nowadays and it's all fun. And I know people that their timeline, I don't want to see other people's drafts. It's not the draft. To me, it's the ensuing conversation. Like you're saying here, like what we're doing. It's the ensuing conversation based off the picks that I find to be, and I don't care that Joe Schmo took this guy in the 12th, but if you read the ensuing replies, it often bridges into some interesting conversation, which after the past few years on Twitter is a welcome relief.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation and hope you'll join us in future weeks. Todd and I are here every Friday, and we'll be back, shortly here today. We're on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, then tomorrow on Fantasy Sports Radio, and then tomorrow again on MLB Network Radio. So you're going to be really sick of me, Todd. I appreciate you putting up with me. Thank you. Vice versa. And thank you all for listening. We'll catch you soon on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.